friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sabrina Rainique, and on this channel we talk about personal finance, we talk about travel, we talk about lifestyle, and living our best lives, whatever that means to us. Today we're going to be talking about how you can improve your relationship with money so that you can make more of it. Your relationship with money dictates how you make money, how much money you think you can make, how you spend your money, and ultimately what you do with your money. Even for myself, if you watch my video about how I plan to pay off my $83,000 of student debt, you'll know that in the first year I did not make any financial moves, meaning I didn't pay my loans at all for the first year because I was so anxious and so worried about paying off that debt. Now, I was reading an article and it said that our thoughts, feelings, emotions, relationship with money were all more important to our financial futures than any investment or any mutual fund that we would choose. Even for myself, I let my relationship with money as well as my emotions with money really govern my financial plan, and it hindered me from making any financial moves on my student debt for a whole year. From there, I learned that if we have a good relationship with money, we are able to make good financial decisions. If we have not so great of a relationship with money, then our financial decisions will reflect that. So let's get into some ways that we can improve our relationship with money so that we can continue to make more of it. So the first thing I want to talk about is changing the way we talk about money. So when I was growing up, I constantly heard the phrase, "I'm broke." So it could be, "Can I get these sneakers?" "No, I'm broke." Or, "Can we go here?" "No, I'm broke." Before I could even get the question out, I knew the answer was going to be, "No, I'm broke." Now, I completely understand that that was a defense mechanism of some sort where we are trying to protect our money, and when we say "I'm broke," hopefully that person won't ask us for money. However, when we think about that a little bit more and we realize that we are constantly putting "I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke" out into the atmosphere, but also we're continuously telling that to ourselves. So this message kind of seeps into our mindset, and now our words are formulating and becoming our thoughts. Taking that even further, our words become our thoughts and our thoughts become our actions. So now we may be acting in accordance with our thoughts of being broke. So that can manifest in different ways. For example, you may say, "I'm not going to apply for that job. I know I could never make that much money." Or you may say, "I'm not going to ask for a raise. I know I could never make that much money." You may even, decide to splurge on things that your budget doesn't allow for because you're like, "Well, I'm broke anyway, so it's really not going to make a difference." Now, this is not to say that there aren't people out there who have their bank accounts currently in overdraft, but I'm here to let you know that you are not broke either. You may have family and friends that care for you very much. You may have your health, you may have an awesome talent, and that makes you far from broke. Not only that, but you have potential. So you can fully show up for yourself. You can create a space where you can learn more about personal finance and really take advantage of the knowledge out there in order to better your financial circumstances. And then you can create a space for you to fully receive the money that you're looking for in abundance. So I want to challenge us all to identify any negative money talk and try to replace that with something that is true, but also feeding ourselves a different message. So the next time someone invites you out, don't tell them, "No, I can't go because I'm broke." Tell them, "I am choosing not to spend my money on this because I have other priorities." When you're looking at your account that may be in overdraft, don't tell yourself that you're always going to be in this situation or that you're always going to be in overdraft, so you might as well just spend the money anyway. Tell yourself that my account is not quite where I want it at the moment, that you are dedicated to taking the next steps, doing the work, learning the personal finance information so that you can get your account in a place that you'd like it to be. The next thing I want to talk about is visualizing your financial goals and making those goals visible. This is something that I love because when I am able to see my financial goals and when I'm able to see myself living out those financial goals, it really helps me to stay motivated. It helps me to see the bigger picture of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I like to journal about my financial goals. I like to create vision boards. You can create a Pinterest, whatever it is that motivates you. Make sure that they are visible so that you can really see why you're doing what you're doing. Another thing that I like to do when it comes to my financial goals is I like to talk about them. I like to talk about them with people that I trust and people who I know have my best interests at heart. So you remember when I said your words become your thoughts and your thoughts become your actions? When you say the things that you want, when you put it out into the atmosphere, when you tell people about it, you'll be surprised what amazing things show up in your life. As you are saying the things that you want in your life when it comes to your financial goals, your actions are going to start to mimic the things that you're saying. When you say your financial goals out loud, you start Googling things, you start reading articles, you start showing up in spaces that revolve around whatever that goal is, you start speaking to experts, and you start really seeing yourself achieving that goal and formulating a plan around it. Not only that, one thing I realized when you start putting these things out into the universe, into the atmosphere, things start to align with the things that you're saying. For example, let's say you're telling your friend that you are trying to save for the down payment of a home, but you are struggling a little bit in order to have that down payment. Once you have told your friend about your financial goals, now your friend is sharing with you jobs that pay higher. She's sharing with you articles on how to negotiate your salary. She is putting you in contact with her coworkers who may need your services for something and who are willing to pay you on the side. So things really start to align based off of the things that you say and put out into the world. Trust me, I have been there. When you say your big dreams out loud, it's scary, but also when you say your big dreams out loud, it makes it real, and things really start to align when you don't keep it inside, but you share it out with the world. The next thing I want to talk about is facing your finances. This was something that was especially difficult for me because when I graduated from school, I had $83,000 of student debt. I was nervous, I was anxious, I was overwhelmed, I had no idea how I was going to tackle that debt, and I didn't know how long it was going to take me. I had almost no personal finance knowledge, even though I was a finance major. And if you watch my video about my plan to pay off my $83,000 of debt, you'll see that it took me almost a year to coax myself in order to just see how much I owed. Now, during that year when I wasn't paying off my student loans, I was just kind of letting them accumulate interest, and in a sense I was really giving up my power because I wasn't in control of when I was going to be debt free or how I was going to tackle those loans or how much I was even going to pay towards them. When I finally got the courage in order to face that number, I hope this doesn't sound corny, but it was very empowering. Now, don't get me wrong, it was still a very scary experience, but through that process, I learned that I could have control over how this journey looked. So it was empowering to be able to do my research and learn more about the student loans. It was empowering to put a plan in place because I was essentially saying, like, this is my journey, I decide how things go. The more I learned about it, the more I acted, the more I interacted with my student debt, it kind of took the scariness away from it. I genuinely believe in order to have a good relationship with your finances as well as money in general, you first have to look at where you stand. The next thing I want to talk about is you don't have to have everything perfectly in place before you get started. This is something that I really had to learn because when I was doing my research about personal finance, I'm not just paying my student debt, but also learning how to save, learning how to budget, learning how to save for retirement. I would learn from these like financial gurus, and so many times they would have already achieved financial independence. So they already have the house, they already are debt free, they already have the income that they wanted, and when I look at them compared to myself, I felt like there was such a huge learning curve. And then I realized we don't get to see their full journey. We don't get to see their tries and try agains. We don't get to see their failures when they fall down. We don't get to see all of that. They most likely have had some times that were tough, where they didn't do everything perfectly and they still got to that point. When I first started my personal finance journey, I had my $83,000 in debt. I didn't know that much about personal finance, but I knew that I had goals. So what I did was I just did the best I could at the time. So if I'm using the example of my student debt, I thought of a number that I thought made sense and that I could pay, and I paid as consistently as possible. There were times when I absolutely missed certain months. There were times when I paid less on my student loans, but the point is I made progress. Any step in the right direction is worth taking. I've learned so many things about personal finance just by starting, just by trying, just by failing and seeing what really worked for me. And thinking about my journey, I'm glad that I started when I did. Even though I am just a little salty that I waited almost a year to start paying off my loans because I feel like I essentially missed out on a year of progress, I am happy that I got started when I did, because when I think about then and now, there is just a huge difference. I think when I first started my journey with paying off my loans, I really could not see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I decided to stay motivated. Now in 2020, I can fully see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it makes me so happy. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to start when I did, even though I didn't know that much about personal finance or student debt or anything like that. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, and I'm so thankful for it. You learn so much just by doing. So even though you may not do everything perfectly, it's so important just to do it, because you learn what works for you, what you want to change, what you want your goals to look like. The next thing I want to talk about is doing the things you want to do right now. I love this one because so many times I hear people say, when I make more money, I'll do X, Y, and Z. So people will say, when I make more money, I'll travel more. When I make more money, I'll take on this really cool hobby. When I make more money, I'll rest. And then I always think, what is more money? What does that mean? I genuinely believe that there is space to incorporate the things that you'd like to do right here, right now. It may not be the perfect circumstance, but I don't believe that there is a perfect circumstance. There's never going to be the perfect time for you to take a year off of work and just travel the world. In my experience, life just happens to you, and life continues to happen to you until you decide to be intentional about the things that you want. And being intentional means making the space for the things that you want to do now, and not waiting for some perfect circumstances sometime in the future, but understanding that you have the power and that you are empowered to create those circumstances now. So for example, let's say you're like, I really want to travel. When I get more money, I'm going to travel more. Well, let's think about if you can possibly travel now. So can you travel to places in your state that you've never been? Can you travel domestically, places in your country that you've never been? Can you travel abroad? And maybe it won't be the most luxurious vacation, but it's a start. I knew that I always wanted to travel. I love a good adventure. When I started traveling, however, I started traveling domestically. So I would call all my friends that I knew who were in a different state that I've never been in, and I would ask them if it was okay, if I could hang out with them, if I could stay with them. So I would buy my flight, I would stay at their house to, save on cost, and that was how I got my feet wet with traveling. So I was able to kind of fulfill my need of traveling, but also start where I was. I encourage you all to think about what are the things that you really want to do, and is there any way you can incorporate at least some level of those things into your life now. And this is not waiting for some perfect time in the future to kind of start, but doing it where you can now. I feel like you never know what's going to happen in the future, so let's not bank on that. Let's ensure that we are enjoying the things that we like to do now, but yes, we are still planning for the future as well. And the next thing I want to talk about is not focusing on the dollar amount, but focusing on the outcome. I think a lot of times we focus on a figure, but we don't focus enough on the outcome. So money is a tool. Money is supposed to do what we tell it to do. So what do we really want? So for example, someone may say, I want to make 6 figures. They are associating making 6 figures with being able to take care of themselves or perhaps a family, being able to buy a nice home, being able to buy a nice car, being able to travel, have leisure time, etc. However, as we know, there are people who are making 6 figures who can barely afford the place that they stay, who can barely afford their car payments, and are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, on the other hand, there are absolutely people out there who aren't making 6 figures. Maybe they're making half of that, but they're able to do all of the things that we mentioned above. So providing for themselves, providing for their family, being able to travel, being able to live in a nice home. And the reason for that is because there are so many ways to achieve the things that we really want outside of a specific dollar amount. So for example, people get very, very flexible with how they achieve their lifestyle. So for example, there are people who choose to move abroad and their companies will pay for their homes, their companies will pay for the little extras, and they are making well under 6 figures. So even though they didn't make that 6-figure goal, they are still very much so enjoying all the things that they set out to achieve. So my main point is that a dollar amount does not mean that we are going to achieve all of our financial goals. There are so many ways to achieve our financial goals, and we can definitely be creative in the way that we pursue them. The last thing I want to talk about is giving yourself grace. Financial journeys are difficult, they're stressful, they're frustrating, and I get it. You aren't going to do everything perfectly. I know I didn't, I know I still don't, but it's a part of the journey. If you are doing the work to educate yourself, if you are showing up in spaces that revolve around the goals that you have set for yourself, if you are taking the necessary steps in order to put a plan in place, then you should really, really, really feel proud about that. You are fully showing up for yourself, and outside of that, there's not much you can really ask for. If you do something that you think you weren't supposed to do, let's say you went over your budget, or let's say you missed a payment on something, I want you to extend grace to yourself and let yourself know that you are trying, you have been showing up for yourself, and you're doing the best that you can. So if no one has told you this today, I see you and I'm proud of you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do encourage you all to comment below and let me know which action resonated with you the most. I think that there is a ton of information about personal finance out there, but we really don't spend enough time talking about our relationships with money and our mindset when it comes to money. As I said, our words become our thoughts become our actions. So we want to ensure that we have positive and abundant thoughts about money so that we can have positive and abundant cash flows.